Could have your attention, please. We'd like you to, first of all, stand and join us all in saying the Pledge of Allegiance here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm Steve Habiger. I am the chairman of the Ocean Pines Elections Committee. Other members of the committee here are Mark Heinz, who is the timekeeper this evening, Ginger Satula, who is passing out the handouts to you, and Rick Rogers, who is interfacing with our audiovisual system. And thank you very much. We're glad you're here. Thomas Jefferson said, "Whenever people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government." Our objective tonight is to help our voters become well informed. So first of all, please silence your cell phones, unless you want to buy the house. That's going to be what happens if anybody's cell phone rings. We are here to listen to these candidates, and so we ask that you please limit applause and conversation in the audience. We're here to focus on what the candidates have to say. The candidates are seated in the order in which they appear on the ballot, starting with Steve Tuttle and ending with Ari Klappoltz. That same order is reflected in the large handout, which you should have, or you can get from Ginger if you missed one. The candidates are going to give their opening statements in ballot order, and then we will sequentially move question by question down in ballot order. And the closing statements will be 3 minutes each, and they will be given in reverse ballot order. And all this is specified in Resolution M06. We have two candidates who unfortunately are not able to be with us tonight. Esther Diller is unable to attend due to the press of business, and Ari Klappoltz is home confined due to illness. So they have handouts at that round table by the entrance, each of them, and you're encouraged to pick up those handouts if you would like them. Questions for this forum have been submitted by Ocean Pines residents in a variety of means. We have way more questions than we have time for here, but we have attempted to select a representative set of questions for the candidates. And with no more formality, well, I did forget one thing, the most important thing. Thank you to the candidates for stepping forward and volunteering to become part of the leadership of this association. On behalf of the community, I think we all thank you very much for that. How could I have forgotten that? So we will start with opening statements in ballot order. Mr. Tuttle.
Thank you. Good evening. Whoa, sorry. Yes, my name is Steve Tuttle. You may have seen my signs around Ocean Pines. I hope by the end of the forum that you'll be ready to elect me to the board of directors. The values of hard work, integrity, service characterized my life. I was born into a farm family in Maine, and working was a way of life. I earned a BS in civil engineering from Northeastern University, a master's in Christian education from Bethel Seminary, and completed graduate work in engineering at the University of Minnesota. My career includes 15 years as a licensed professional civil engineer, followed by a 21-year career in college campus ministry, 5 years as director of operations for a youth ministry in Camden, New Jersey, and 5 years as a building and facilities manager for a 35-acre, 5-building campus in New Jersey that serves students with severe disabilities. I currently serve as a trustee of the community church at Ocean Pines, volunteer at the church flea market, and am a member of the Anglers, the pickleball club, and boating clubs. My wife and I have been married for nearly 50 years. We have 3 children, 4 grandchildren. We bought our home in Ocean Pines in 2014 and became full-time residents in 2015. If I am elected to the board, I will to the best of my ability, serve association members. I believe in and have practiced servant leadership throughout my life. Servant leadership requires me to put the membership before my own desires, personal gain, or ego. You can read more about my understanding of leadership on my website. There's flyers available here tonight that will tell you the address. My campaign focus has been transparency, common sense financial management, and accountability. I really believe that we need to have fewer closed meetings. We need to develop better board communication to association members, and I would encourage and support town hall and work sessions. In terms of finances, I believe that the budget should be based on historical revenues and expenses. We should never build a budget that says we have more income than is even possible historically. Corrections to budget should be done or made during the year if possible, if revenues are showing up as less than expected, and I would like to ensure that audit recommendations are implemented fully. In terms of accountability, I believe that the board serves association members. We need to consider and respond to members' concerns. I would encourage some kind of an OPA weekly communication from general management. We must learn from the past, but we must not be controlled by the past. It is time for the board to work together for the good of association members. If you elect me to the board, I will give my very best to serve you, the membership.
Mr. Daly.
As many of you know, I ran for the board in 2016 and was gratified with the 1,028 votes that I received. At that time, I was asked if I would run again. My response was that if Ocean Pines was well managed, I would be quite content just to continue my work on the Strategic Planning Committee. So let's recap our performance since the 2016 election. At the board and management level, we terminated the contract of one general manager and appointed a board member as acting GM. The acting GM developed a plan and budget that led to major operating losses and turnover within the senior staff, including 3 directors of finance. During the acting GM's tenure, we witnessed serious infighting and fracturing of the board that included an attempt to remove an elected director 2 weeks before last year's election. We hired a new GM, John Bailey, and the acting GM subsequently resigned from the board. During the course of the past year, the Treasurer's report has misstated our operating losses from 30 to 70%, including a $400,000 miss in 1 week. This led for calls to the Treasurer to resign and for additional conflict and infighting on the board that we saw last week. At the operations level, we have experienced a record operating shortfall of $1.2 million, mostly in our food and beverage operations. This equates to an assessment increase of $142 per homeowner. Allegations of fraud and corruption from 2 former directors have led to a $250,000 forensic audit. 2 known thefts have occurred, one at the yacht club where the confessed thief was released without any legal action. The second, a reported $27,000 theft from the finance department, remains unsolved. A deep dive audit commissioned by the board identified weak, ineffective business processes, poor management, and outdated software as inherent weaknesses in the management of the association. Reports surfaced that the Financial Management Handbook, which governs our procurement and financial practices, has not been updated since 2006. It should have been updated every 3 years. We have seen a number of single-source quotes and contract awards that did not follow our financial guidelines. One that was questioned by the board and brought in line with the guidelines showed a savings of $43,000 over the single-source quote. Last year, I couldn't run for the board. I was called to higher duty. A member of our family was deployed with Naval Special Warfare to Afghanistan. This year, I can run, and I'm running to bring better management to our association and to restore your trust and confidence in the board. To do that, I need one thing: your vote. Thank you.
That's impressive. Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Turner. Very intimidating. Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Turner. I've been a resident of Ocean Pines full-time since 19...
Mr. Turner, would you
See, all right, how's that? I wasn't reading, I was just kind of looking down at the table. I'm very shy, and I have to picture you all in a different frame of mind. But anyways, again, my name is Greg Turner. I've lived in Ocean Pines for almost 40 years. I've lived here since 1978 full-time. I've been here in the summers as a child growing up since 1968, and I've seen Ocean Pines grow. Just unbelievable how well it's done. Usually I'm not really a big joiner. I've been pretty much a laid-back person. Like I told my neighbor, you can sit and do nothing. You can go to a club, you can play golf, you can do whatever you want to do here. And that is one of the beauties of Ocean Pines. But we had a little incident. My colleague here to the right kind of talked about it briefly, where it seems like we have no oversight. Money just goes away, and the answer seems to be, just raise the dues. And, and I just, I had enough. And I don't think that it's right that we should be paying for things that just are not right. I look at this building. It's a beautiful building, but we're looking in here in basically an auditorium gymnasium that's pretty much used for weddings. I don't know how many weddings they have here, but I think it's kind of a big expense to have this. I've noticed that the food and beverage service here is a way bigger problem than it's not a problem. It was a problem, and it seems to be clearing up. The food downstairs is pretty good. If anybody's been downstairs, if you haven't, I suggest try it. They need to work on their service a little bit, but that's okay. And the building downstairs is really nice. It's very festive for coming here and have a dinner, and I'd suggest you try it. I am an electrical contractor here in Worcester County. I'm sorry, I'm only a community college educated person. I don't have degrees hanging off my wall for a bunch of stuff. I've been in management just about all my career, which spans some 35 years as an electrical contractor, also as a building contractor, and foreman and construction managers for different companies, and I am told I have to stop. Thank you. Good.
Hello, my name is Paula Gray. I'm going to take the first 30 seconds or so, based on that clock that's staring at me, to say I am just me. I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, mom to 2 rescue dogs. I have been through a lot of things in life. I have worked everything from a senior vice president secretary to a railroad yard master for 32 years. I guess you're wondering what this might have to do with being a board member. Bear with me a little longer. I've been married, divorced, have children. All of this shows that, as we all know and as adults, that it's necessary when you're on the board to work with a very diverse group of people and to try to find answers to questions, and at least make sure we can ask the questions. During that time, as I passed through life, I was appointed to the Anne Arundel Foster Care Review Board by our governor. I am a member of the American Association of University Women and held elected positions in that organization. I'm a longtime member of American Mensa. I was elected treasurer and president of the nonprofit Friends of Downs Park in Anne Arundel County. I served 18 months as a CASA volunteer for abandoned children in Baltimore City. And I was a Snack Shack volunteer for 18 years. We're in a 5-foot-tall building. Now, sorry for the bouncing around, but one of the things that I believe when you volunteer, that people need to know a little about you for this reason. I hope that you will see from my history that I do not take on responsibilities without thoughts. I don't take on those responsibilities without seeing them through. And that once I've pledged, vowed, or hired on to do something, I have always strived to give it the best it deserved. That definitely, I'm not afraid of hard work. I first met up with the Pines almost 50 years ago. My first husband and I came out here and bought 2 waterfront lots for $9,900 each. Went home and my ex, notice the term ex, mother-in-law, got us out of that really bad deal because no one was ever going to move here because of the mosquitoes. I can reiterate pages and pages of what I did. I can tell you what happened in the past. I think I owe a whole lot to Mary Ellen and Mike, who invited me to their house last week to try to explain my position, and I realized how easy it is to get drifty. I think I drifted so much in that house that day, I needed an oar. I do hope you will listen to my answers later. Feel free to contact me personally at any time with questions and answers, and from these responses, decide that I deserve your trust. Thank you very much, and thank you for taking the time to show up tonight. Let's make Pines better the next 50 years.
Good evening. My name is Ted Maroney. I was born and raised in Alexandria, Virginia, and graduated from Norwich University. For 35 years, I was CEO and treasurer of Superior Foundation Incorporated, a design-build subcontractor in the Washington, D.C. area, turning the business over to my brothers and semi-retiring as a risk management vice president for a firm in Maryland. My wife, Sue, and I bought in Ocean Pines in 2006, and we are currently transitioning to become full-time residents. I have been active serving on the contract review team, the OPA 10-year task force, numerous OPA building committees, including the Yacht Club and the Community Center, the Reserve Studies Selection Group, and a number of other OPA activities in the last decade. I was asked to fill an empty board position at the end of September 2017. As I said then, the easiest step would have been to sit on the sidelines and wait for this election. I understood and I felt that my best value to OPA would be to jump in and to assist in writing the association, despite the fact that Ocean Pines was in the midst of a crisis. Multiple directors of finance, turmoil on the board, poor budgeting, and poor management performance all contributed to this problem. In my opinion, the answer to our financial issues will seem simple. We must budget realistically and live within that budget. Instead of ignoring the Budget and Finance Committee's recommendations, this year we made them an integral part of the budget we now operate under. I believe we are headed in the right direction. It is my desire to continue that progress, to build on the success over the last 9 months, complete a number of outstanding projects, and to continue to bring continuity and common sense to the Ocean Pines Association operation.
Thank you very much. The first question, we'll start with Steve Tuttle. What experience, and incidentally, the questions will be limited to 2 minutes duration. The answers will be limited to 2 minutes duration. What experience has prepared you for serving as a director in this association?
Thank you. A number of things. I think growing up on a farm where practical knowledge and common sense and making do with less was a way of life. My civil engineering background, where I managed regional offices in Illinois and Fairfax, Virginia for a Chicago-based engineering firm. My ministry in the Mid-Atlantic area, serving on secular college campuses, where I was building teams, leading teams, managing budgets, hiring, firing, and overseeing staff. As a director of operations for a program in Camden, New Jersey, I was involved in fund development, management, reports to the board of directors, and development of dashboards for the board. As a building and facilities manager, over 35 acres and 5 buildings, I developed RFPs, reviewed and awarded contracts for everything from landscaping and grass cutting to snow removal, roof replacements, building rehabilitation, heating, ventilating contracts, and trash removal. Focus was always on cost saving and environmentally sensitive approach. And finally, I would say 50 years of marriage prepares you for a lot.
I'm Frank Daly. First, I think the first qualification is living here since 2013 has given me the opportunity to get involved with the community and understand generally what goes on. Second, I have a 40-year-plus career in senior management and board-level assignments. I started as a mechanical engineer co-op trainee, ended up as vice president and general manager. I have a pretty decent education. I hold a master's degree in mechanical engineering, an MBA in finance and marketing, and I've graduated from the Wharton Executive Development Program. I have some leadership experience at the senior level. I've served on the board level at 4 different organizations, the board of directors of 1 homeowners association, and at 2 major universities, the University of California at Berkeley and Arizona State University. My experience within the association also helps. I currently chair the Strategic Planning Committee, and I'm a member of the Golf Advisory Committee. And finally, although semi-retired, I keep abreast of current trends by being president of Jordan Frank Associates, a company that I founded, which is a global firm that recruits for the engineering and construction business. Each day, I get the opportunity to talk with world leaders in the top construction companies to discuss management issues. And in my final 39 seconds, I couldn't agree more with Steve. 47 years of management teaches you a heck of a lot more than any of this other stuff I just read.
I bring to the table leadership and management skills. I'm the guy that takes the 2 engineers over here and takes their dreams and ideas and sheets of paper and make them and brings them to fruition. I build, I make things work. I run people, I make people do what they're supposed to do. I went to school for hotel, motel, restaurant management. I've also taken numerous courses and other things for continuing education in construction management, as well as electrical and other things. Without engineers, and I listen to these guys, you know, we wouldn't have paper. Without me, their paper is just a lot of nice drawings. I make their plans work, and that's what I plan to do here. I think that we have a beautiful community, and I think that there's just nobody taking care of anything. Everybody just looks the other way. I was over at Calvin B. Taylor Bank. I watched 3 guys mowing the same piece of grass, and they're actually having chariot races with the lawnmowers. I don't know about you, but something's wrong there. No supervision. And that seems to be the biggest problem here in Ocean Pines. It's a continuing problem. Things get done 3, 4, 5 times, same projects. I can count the country club being rebuilt 4 times. I can see this place here twice. I look at the bulkheads on my canal being done twice, and they're exactly the same as what they were before they tore them out. No supervision, and it's the worst thing in the world. You know, we can have these guys doing all this beautiful work, but if somebody doesn't put what they do to practice, it's absolutely meaningless. And I plan, if you elect me, I hope you will, I plan to make people do with their jobs. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hello. Before we heard what I had in the way of education and jobs, but I also have one that I was lucky. I was born poor. Poor wasn't as good as television by any stretch of the imagination, but I was fortunate. And as I went through life, I was able to see how things really work, to be able to answer people's questions, to listen to the fact that everyone can bring something to the table. That seems to be missing in some of the things here. It bothered me a lot, and that's why I decided to run for the board. We need to have an interaction, and I bring that to this board. My 32 years as a railroad yardmaster and 10 years with Department of Defense taught me that you can learn things from the janitor just as well as you can learn things from the head of the company. I've had a very lot of experience, line management, solving instant problems, everything from where is the United Parcel train on Christmas Eve to the Howard Street tunnel fire. But the rest of my life has also been accurate assessment of a real problem. I think we all have a budget. We look at it, whether we admit to it, sometimes monthly, sometimes daily. We all live by it. Budget here seems to be a rather unidentified word. There must be a definition that way, way down. And one of the things that my experience has taught me that you must live by that budget. You cannot live on your American Express card and expect never to have to pay the bill. Right now, we have to face paying the bill. Hopefully, with the responsibility of the board and the new people coming on board, we can find a way to do this successfully without causing a lot of harm. But if you all have something to say, please make sure you're heard, whether it's by electing me or electing someone else. Thank you.
As CEO of a mid-sized contractor, I handled virtually every aspect of the business at one time or another. Specifically, I handled all hiring, firing, training, as well as HR functions to include health and retirement benefits. I negotiated all contracts and change orders, and as a treasurer was responsible for the financials, including all banking and surety relationships. In addition to that, I was a founding member and director and first president of a Mid-Atlantic Trade Association, and I've served as a trustee and president of the board for a nonprofit school in Southern Virginia for a number of years. Specifically here in Ocean Pines, I've laid out what I've done as a volunteer, so I know a lot of people within the community and also within the staff and management here, so I've developed some relationships. And as a director, one of the most important things has been to develop a relationship with the new finance officer and the new GM. And I think I've done both of those, and I think they will help me going forward to be able to make the changes that we've already started.
Thank you very much. I have an announcement for the candidates. I'm going to call an audible at the line. As I see you speaking, I see people crane in trying to figure out who's talking. I had told the candidates I wasn't going to call for I figured they could figure out who was next. But for the audience, I'm going to call the next person to speak by name, okay? So that's a shift. We decided not to do that. The second question is for Frank. Starts with Frank. Stormwater management is an issue in Ocean Pines. If elected, how would you address the matter?
Flooding in certain areas of Ocean Pines has been a persistent problem over the years. Part of the problem is simply due to our location, a coastal wetland only a few feet above sea level. Another part of the problem is lack of maintenance of our ditches and some previously installed construction that has been either ineffective or poorly maintained or may have just even worsened the problem. As some of you know, we currently have a drainage committee working on this issue, and that includes different stakeholders, county officials, association management, predominantly from Public Works, and residents. And this is a good start, but I don't think it's enough to mitigate the problem. I think what we need is to issue an RFP to firms with specific expertise in the design and construction of community stormwater management, and to bring them in and have them work on this issue because they have the ability to design, to secure the permitting at the local, state, and federal level, to construct, and most importantly, once they're done with this project, to leave with our Public Works Department a schedule of maintenance so that these mitigated areas can be maintained in their designed and their as-constructed condition. And I think that's what I do as the next step. And by the way I was chuckling, I agree 100% with my colleague to the left. I learned that as a journeyman iron worker.
Thank you, Frank. Greg?
All right, yeah, there we go. It's an interesting question because I have that problem in my yard. I have water that runs from both my neighbors' yards into my yard, and it floods my backyard out. Actually, my dog kind of likes it. He goes out and splashes around. The mosquitoes they really like it. They're humongous. I think it's an interesting situation that we have this problem, but we have to remember that, as it's already been stated, is that we're only a few feet, if that, between 2 and 14 feet above sea level. It's a difficult situation, and I'm sorry to say that water doesn't run uphill; it only runs downhill. And there is things that need to be done. I agree. But we do need professional people to come in here as he said, that do this on a daily basis. I don't think there's anybody in this community, as far as the maintenance people go, they just go out and dig ditches. They dig the swales deeper, and it just coagulates and makes it worse. It would almost be better if they just left things alone. But we do need somebody to come in here that knows what they're doing, tell us what to do, give us an idea on a cost and figures, and get it into a budget to where we can afford to do this. It has to happen. I know it has to happen, and I hope that it does. But it's something that it's a tough situation, and I know that there's a lot of people that feel bad about it, especially in heavy rains. I know over on Bearberry, they have problems, and I know over on not Watertown, the other side of Watertown, they actually have where you could have canoes floating around in the streets on heavy rains. So hopefully we'll get it worked out.
Thank you, Greg. Paula?
Well, I moved here from the land of the swamp in Anne Arundel County. I had a perpetual bog and a tidal pond complete with critters behind my house. Down here, I came to listen and saw a lot of runoff, a lot of water. The idea, and I appreciate wholeheartedly that they're looking at a major drainage correction, but that's not necessarily going to also help us between our homes and behind our homes. As Mr. Bailey put it, there are some places that the pines cannot affect a change. So we have to also have a working committee to work on individual areas to explain to neighbors why you can't throw leaves into the thing. This might sound really simple, but it starts as a small problem. Having the study done for the major water treatment is necessary for the future of the pines. But right now, with the financial condition we're in, it would be most imperative that we know what this cost for this major funding of water correction would be. We are only inches above water level, and it's not going to get any better with the rains we've been seeing. But we also have to realize that money is the solution to a lot of things, and right now we do not have money. So we need to have two aspects to this problem. One where we can do individual or neighbor corrections, and a future when we get financially stable where we can then bring in the money and do the big jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Ted?
Four basic things. OPA will never be able to solve the entire stormwater management problem in Ocean Pines. There is a GM-driven group, including county and at least one elected official, Jim Bunning, who's been excellent in working with us in the past and will be going forward, looking at problems and solutions. And that kind of has to get done before you can ever develop an RFP until you know what you're asking for. The road reserves that we have currently allows OPA to put reserves away for culvert and fixed structure replacement, but we have never funded those in the 50 years of Ocean Pines. The budget currently has $60,000 for drainage management this year, which is a small amount when you think about the number of areas that we have to affect. But there are three things we can do. I asked the GM at the last board meeting to suggest to the drainage group that they consider recommending reserves be added to the replacement of the culverts as part of the roads and bridges reserve. Therefore, going forward, we could replace without having to increase assessments. We can and must shape the culverts to maximize water flow. And as part of this budget cycle, we need to assign a cost for a year-round crew to bring all culverts into good shape, identify that cost, and start in the hardest hit areas. Third, we need a separate crew until the culverts have been shaped, dedicated only to maintenance, and to identify the costs for that team. In other words, they are cleaning and clearing, not doing replacement or shaping culverts or diverting to other community needs. In summary, it may take 2 4-person crews, but we must budget for and attack the 3 areas that we in Ocean Pines can control: reserving culvert replacement dollars, the culvert shaping project, and the general maintenance.
Thank you, Ted. Steve?
Yes, thank you. I think my 15 years of civil engineering experience would be very helpful here. I know where some of the problems are in the Pines, but I would like to get a full picture of where all of the flooding issues really are. I would like to see us review some of the studies that have already been done. I have a study here that was done in the Bainbridge neighborhood for after the River Run improvements were completed, and it documents several issues related to why the area is flooding, mostly because of poor maintenance. I'd like to review the report that's being prepared by the Drainage Working Group. I've attended one of their meetings, and I think they're on to some good ideas, but I have some questions about some of what they're doing. I think all discussion of remediation work should include the public works staff responsible for ditch and culvert maintenance. We need to draw upon the knowledge of our own staff that are already employed by Ocean Pines to help us to figure out how to solve some of these problems, especially in the maintenance area. We need a clear plan that develops and provides for regular maintenance of all ditches, and it should be on a revolving basis. And before buying more equipment or hiring more staff, we need to evaluate the effectiveness of our current operations. The possibility even of contracting out some of the major culvert replacement projects could be a good way to do it in a timely manner and a less costly manner as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. This next question will start with Greg. What do you think are the top issues facing the association over the next 2 to 3 years, and what solutions do you offer?
Got to get started. I think the biggest problem is we're having, and it's going to be a continuing thing, is just cost of things. It seems like, we don't get bids on projects. I know the project up at the front gate's very pretty, at the north gate, but it was a no-bid project a couple of years ago. We have other things that get done that aren't bid, and we don't hold people's feet in the fire when they give a bid. You should make those people do what they told you they're going to do, and make them do the way it's supposed to be done. Don't let other people come in and change and alter things. And the biggest thing is just spending money. We got to stop. There's got to be an end to it. People here, we pay way too much. We pay almost the same thing as county taxes, and we're doing the same thing for ourselves that the county does for the rest of the residents of the county. And so, what do? I don't know. The answer is, we need to cut our costs. We need to cut our salaries back here a little bit. When we start people, do what Ocean City did. Ocean City reduced the salaries of every starting employee by almost a quarter. I don't know why you give somebody a couple $100,000 to get started. I don't know why you talk to a management group about their bonuses before they even started or turned a leaf or put out a plate. So that's kind of the way I look at it. We have to watch our nickels and dimes and dollars. And I think that if we do that, I think we'll do good. Make people accountable. If they're not and they don't do their jobs, fire them. Get rid of them. Put them on the road. Get somebody that will. Oh.
Thank you, Greg. Paula.
I think the 2 of the 3 issues would be communication. We have a real dearth of back and forth. Things happen. We either find out about them accidentally. It can be an unpleasant surprise. There could be a pleasant surprise. Resident participation in what we actually do here, that sounds very naive. But a lot of the people that I've talked to have said, I would do this, but. I would like to participate and join in and do this, but, because we're not communicating back. Example, we haven't given out the restaurant contract yet, and yet we were all over here by the pool watching them modify the restaurant. The people who are here are wonderful. I'm glad they're here. But it's really difficult for the third thing, board credibility. We have to start to be able to trust the board. That got lost last year, whether people like to admit it or not. We're all wondering, excuse the expression, how the hell did this happen? And we really would like to be able to trust the board going forward. That means more openness. It doesn't mean we have to know everything they do. It doesn't mean we have to do most of what they do. But we really need to be able to know what is going to impact us. And we need to know it sometimes in advance. We have to be able to trust them with our goodwill to do what they have apparently are now trying. There have been a lot of changes in the past 3 months. I have to admit that. It's very, very wonderful changes. But there's still a long way to go. And if you all out there can't trust the board, then we might as well not have a board. So we have to work harder to earn your trust. And with that, maybe we'll be able to move forward on a lot of things that need to be done.
Thank you, Paula. Ted?
The top two issues I have is software. We've got to complete the analysis of the best software program or combination of programs, make a decision, purchase, install, train, and migrate to that system as soon as we can. I sat in this morning on the Budget and Finance Committee meeting, and it was obvious that we have a good team in place with John Viola, John Bailey, and Steve Phillips, but they and our staff are working on antiquated software that oftentimes requires multiple hand entries every month, and that's where problems start to arise. The second area is kind of a combination of a number of things, and that's the capital improvement plan and a true preventive maintenance plan within Ocean Pines. By the end of the month, the reserve study will be complete and decisions on the 4 fundamental questions will be addressed. That will show you the CIP as it applies to replacement of what we have, and that's the replacement reserves. It will show the year a component, say a roof, a vehicle, or a hot water heater is scheduled to be replaced and the projected cost. It is fluid, a living document, so things will move back and forth each year, but it will give us something to plan with. We can no longer defer maintenance, and having that CIP allows for planning and maintaining, which ultimately will extend the life of our assets. Of particular importance to me is getting the road and bulkhead plan fully up to speed since they've been postponed for more than a year. But the bottom line is that deferring maintenance only exacerbates the problem.
Thank you, Ted. Steve?
Thank you. I think there are 4 things that are really important, but there's really a 5th one that I think is most important. I think we do need to work on controlling the increase of our assessments. If we're going to increase assessments, we better justify why that increase is needed. We do need to settle on the reserve accounts. There's been a lot of conversation about how much needs to be in the reserve account. That needs to be settled, and hopefully this reserve study is going to help us with that. And the 3rd thing is we do need to complete the country club, and we need to complete the police administration building project that was initiated a while back. But my major concern is related to the breakdown of trust, the loss of civility, and the confidence that the board can be effective going forward. I believe the board can change the narrative and rebuild the damaged OP brand, to use the words of the Mad Art Company. I think that will be accomplished by transparency, and that has improved some over the last year, but in my opinion, there are way too many closed meetings. Board meetings should be public meetings as much as possible. We need to do solid financial management, and we need to be accountable as board members to the membership. So I think the loss of civility and the inability for the board to function well is a major issue that needs to be dealt with and resolved. And I think that we have a chance to do that in the upcoming election. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Frank?
I think in my opening statement, I pointed out that in many ways you've been failed over the past 2 years. And here are some of the issues that I think we need to address to mitigate those failures. More than anything else, we need strong leadership from the new general manager and from the board. Working together, the GM and the board need to engage the homeowners, understand their priorities, and develop a strategic plan that lays out a vision for maintaining and improving Ocean Pines, correcting the known problems, and identifying the costs for doing so. As an adjunct, we need a board committed to working together, and this I address to the people sitting around me, and to solve problems in a business-like manner. We have to learn how to criticize without punching and how to accept valid criticism without crying. To undertake each and every action necessary to correct the deficiencies noted in a deep dive audit and any findings that we find in a forensic audit. We need to strengthen our business processes to ensure that every transaction within this association follows best practices guidelines to guard against theft and/or misappropriation of association assets. We need to strengthen the accountability between the department heads and the GM and the board and the people. We need strong budgetary goals, and we also have to report on what we're doing program-wise against that budget. We need to improve our procurement system to ensure that each and every purchase is competitive and delivers maximum value to you. And we need to strengthen public works. My position is every homeowner should know the plan, the schedule, and the cost for maintaining the infrastructure around them. Ditches, roads, bridges, bulkheads, everything. And then finally, we need to continue our efforts to reduce the impact of the food and beverage operation and the golf and aquatics on our assessment.
Thank you, Frank. Next question will start with Paula. What attracted you personally to Ocean Pines, and why do you seek this director position?
Well, I guess I've always wanted to be near the ocean ever since I was a child. We won't go how far back that was. The ability to have everything you have here. My son lived here for 10 years, and I was always amazed at how little people realize what a great place this is. I mean, it's unreal compared to most other places on the planet. And I worked towards getting here. When I got here, I really am concerned about what happened in the past year or two. And that made me decide that maybe I should become involved in trying to solve problems that are solvable if people want to solve them. My concern was that some of the problems weren't being viewed as solvable, and that the directions that were being taken were not in the directions necessary. I think we all saw that last year. It is now time to move on. It is time to bring things together and move on. Without making people unhappy by talking about raising the assessments, you would not believe what the assessments are in the state of Maryland. And I know you think that $30 is a big increase. One of the women at the pool the other day said her other property was a $3,800 increase because of a problem that they had to repair. I think that I would contribute a lot because I'm practical, I'm pragmatic, and I'm realistic. It's really, big ideas are nice, but we also have to pay for them. And I don't want to leave my husband having to hurry up and find another wife in order to continue living here.
Thank you, Paula. Ted?
What attracted us to Ocean Pines, looking ahead a dozen years ago, my wife Sue and I considered a number of places, including Myrtle Beach, the Outer Banks, and the Ocean City area. What led us to Ocean Pines was the amenities, which provided a wide range of activities for almost anyone, the recreation program that offers activities for an eclectic membership, and a series of clubs and organizations that fill out a multitude of interests. The bottom line on that was that Ocean Pines is more than a series of homes with a pool and a tennis court. It is a community, and that's why we chose to live here. Why the board? When I accepted the position at the end of September, I fully realized it would be a difficult time given the financial picture, the board rancor and infighting, and the numerous outstanding issues facing the association. I wanted to see if I could make a difference before declaring a run for this position, and like my colleagues, I worked hard on achieving results. I think my skill set has benefited the board. I understand that we must work as a team and understand how to help the organization reach consensus in moving forward. Finally, in 9 months, we've transformed the way we work, and have moved the association forward. I want to finish the major issues that we face with a team of dedicated individuals, including 3 of the folks who are sitting here tonight, and make us all proud of our community.
Thank you, Ted. Steve?
Thank you. We first became acquainted with Ocean Pines when we rented a house on Sandy Hook. We have a boat, and I was looking for a place where we could put our boat in the water, so we came to Ocean Pines. We found it through a home-away rental situation. We really liked the Pines when we were here, so we bought a firehouse raffle ticket because we were convinced we would win a house. Well, we didn't win a house, but when we retired, we decided that this would be where we'd like to live. All 3 of our children live in Maryland as well, so we found it attractive to be closer to our children and grandchildren. So why am I seeking a director position? I look at life kind of like you can either stand on the sidelines and complain, or you can get involved. When we first came to the Pines, one of the things that concerned me, it was the election year when there were 11 candidates. There was one forum offered. It was during the week, and I asked a couple of questions, and I was concerned that The only forum was during the week, and there were people who would like to go to a forum to hear from the candidates, but were not able to do so because they work or they were here part-time. So I arranged a forum at the Ocean Pines Library. It was advertised through the newspapers, and about 150 people or so showed up for that. Ocean Pines is a great place. It's a wonderful place to live. I feel like I can make a positive contribution. I'd like to help change the Ocean Pines story that is being told too often in the newspapers recently. I bring varied experience to help make a difference. I love problem solving, and I like to listen to people and hear what their concerns are. I like to look at various options when we're trying to solve a problem, but often we have to realize when we solve one problem, we create another problem. For example, if you increase the size of a culvert at one driveway, you may cause more flooding down the road. So I want to look at the whole picture and figure out best ways to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Frank?
Thank you, Steve. I think like most of the folks here, the attraction was the quality of life, the cost of living, the multitude of activities, the proximity to the ocean, the variety of amenities, the reputation for safety, and the geographic proximity to the family. Just for the record, we do own a house in Vail, Arizona, but that would take me 2,400 miles away from Little Creek and my surrogate dad responsibilities. One thing I was not sure of, but I can now add, is the quality and the character of the people, my fellow homeowners. That has been a real delight in the time that we've lived here. Now, the issue is, why do I want to seek a director position? Well, I think like most of you, I would have to confess that over time I've lost the ability to run as fast as I used to and swim as fast as I used to. But I do have the education, the ability, and the experience to work with my fellow board members to clean up the management mess that each one of us has had to deal with for the past 2 years. And make no mistake about it, that is the only reason I'm running for the board, to clean up the management of this place and to get it running more efficiently for each and every one of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Greg?
I came here, I lived in a little town called Greenbelt, Maryland, and from my backyard at wintertime, we could see the Washington Cathedral when they weren't burning something down in D.C., usually some townhouses or row houses or some cars and stuff. And that was one of the reasons that brought me here. This was just a nice, quiet, no beltway, no traffic, just you hear the rustling in the woods, and I scared the hell out of me the first time I heard it. I thought somebody's surely coming to break in my house, because that's what would have happened in Greenbelt. And it turned out to be a covey of quail. And it's like, oh my God. Well, to be honest with you, hopefully nobody really knows where I live, because I don't really lock my doors that much around here. And I leave keys in the car. I know we're not really supposed to do that. I think it's even against the law in the state of Maryland. But it's just a thing that I feel comfortable doing because of just the way this community is. And it's been like that since I've lived here. It's amazing. The people are beautiful. When I first moved here, people were worried because I was a single guy. I'm still a single guy. You know, then my neighbors would come over and say, oh, you're not eating right. Oh, come on over and have dinner with us and that kind of stuff. You know, back home, they wouldn't ask you to do anything except stay off their yard. So coming down here, it was a mind-boggling. As far as seeking a position for the board of directors, it's not just this year or last year, it's a bunch of years. And I think I can do just as well as any of them have. And I think that I have a different outlook on the way things go. I'm a worker. I lift nails, beat nails, and I work for a living. I get my hands dirty, and I don't mind doing it.
Thank you, Greg. This next question will start with Ted. What solutions do you recommend for underperforming amenities?
My goal, first and foremost, regarding amenities is to concentrate on every amenity breaking even operationally and then looking for methods to improve performance. So if you go and you take a look at the April unaudited operations for the year, you'll find that pickleball, platform tennis, aquatics, marinas, beach parking, and golf operations were all in the black operationally. Tennis lost about $7,500. The biggest issue was the disaster in food and beverage. Turns Grill lost $36,000, the Beach Club $103,000, and the Yacht Club a whopping $673,000. So what's happened? Turns Grill is back under control of golf, and we'll watch the performance closely. By the way, the Ort companies did not want to take on Turns Grill this year. The Yacht Club and Beach Club have been addressed by outsourcing by this board, and I think you will find when the June numbers come out, we're going to be wondering why we didn't do this before. So the next goal, assuming we have food and beverage squared away, is to review operational cost savings versus services provided. In my opinion, we're making progress, and if we can simply get food and beverage back to break even, it will put $800,000 towards the bottom line.
Thank you, Ted. Steve?
Thank you. I agree with Ted that I think our amenities should be break even. There are some situations where I think we do subsidize amenities. I would like to see us identify which amenities are underperforming on a regular basis, and when they are, we need to evaluate why and determine what we need to do to change that trend. I'd like to see each amenity director work with an assistance from their amenity members to establish annual goals for membership, for income and expense. I think quarterly reports from our amenities would be very helpful to the board in assessing how the amenities are performing. Also, I would like to see the amenities that are consistently underperforming evaluated to determine if we should continue to keep those amenities, and to be evaluated in the light of whether or not they're performing and deciding maybe some hard decisions about what we should do about those amenities. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Frank?
Okay, I think if you look at the financial statements, basically our underperforming amenities are the food and beverage operations and golf. Aquatics and racket sports are either at break-even or above break-even. And I think the challenge there is to continue the progress of the ones that are at break-even or above break-even, meet the community needs without degrading financial performance. And I'll tell you about just amenities, my general impression. Since I moved here in 2013, I think our food and beverage strategy and our golf strategy could be summed up in the following words: build it and they will come. And if they don't come, don't worry, be happy, okay? Something else will happen. Quality, service, pricing, and selection are not words of choice. This past winter, our new GM changed that philosophy and took steps to move us in an entirely different direction. Now, for the record, I would have preferred a formal RFP that went out for both outsourcing the food and beverage operation and for leasing it. That didn't happen. But that being said, I will tell you the Ort companies, in my personal opinion, from 50 people that I've talked to, is doing a wonderful job. Last week, for the first time since I moved here, my golf group golfed at Ocean Pines and went to the Yacht Club and reported a good time. Now, moving forward, what do we have to do? Hopefully, the Ort group's work downstairs with quality and service will lead them to Turns Grill. Golf's a little difficult problem because people haven't stopped eating, but they stopped playing golf. But again, we need an outreach from the golf management to our community to pull in the players, to use that course more effectively in the off-season and for a more aggressive marketing approach moving forward. And I think that'll get us to where we want to go.
Thank you, Frank. Greg?
Yeah, we talk about the country club and the golf course. Well, they've never made money with the golf course or the country club. You have two restaurants in the same community before we had these other restaurants out on an outlying area that always competed against each other for the same people. You had to be a member to come and eat here. You had to be a member to come and eat there, which was always, to me, was stupid. You know, there's just not enough people to go around to use both the buildings efficiently. Now we've got a building sitting over, a couple of blocks away, Country Club, that's just nothing happening there. Golf is on a decline. It's not on a rise. People are just not playing golf. But it seems like we have never had people playing golf here. It's a beautiful course. I'm sorry, I don't play golf. It's just not one of my things. But it's just it's a tough thing. I think the management that when they come here, I think they've done who I guess is the general manager stepped up, and he's got the good idea of outsourcing the buildings. But if you sit there and outsource this, the yacht club and the country club, you're competing against each other. I don't think that's going to work. And so that's something we have to look into. I think that the group that's here now, I've looked at some of their menus and stuff like that. I really like what they're getting ready to do or are doing for the 50th anniversary over the Beach Club. It looks really good. I saw some aerial views. They're using the boardwalk that was down by the volleyball court that has never been used since I've lived here. So these guys seem to have their act together, and I'd like to see more of that happen. Oh.
Thank you, Greg. Paula?
Well, first and foremost, when you look at an underperforming amenity, perhaps there should be an objective evaluation of why it's being determined that it's an underperforming amenity. Sometimes I have found it to be that examples of a not good way to identify it would include our crabbing pier, include our crabbing pier. Just because we all don't use it doesn't make it an expendable item. When we talk about the golf course, I've been spending 2 years trying to find someone to teach me to play golf. They finally had a woman's 10-person group, and we don't get together again until next year. There are a lot of new people in the Pines. Perhaps to get rid of some of these losses, we could market a little better to people coming in the door that would like not to hit themselves with a golf club. The classic example with the yacht club, I am already hearing, and I've been frequenting the yacht club a great deal. They have great food, they have a great bartender, it's a nice place. But I've already heard members say, well, after 2 years and they get it up and running, we'll be able to take it over. Uh-oh. Then we'll go back to being underperforming again. It's difficult to have people identify or to admit that maybe things like with the golf club and the eating place over there, using the term loosely, why it's not successful. It's not attractive. And we have to go to a place where we will find a way to make it attractive to a different type of people. Meetings held there, documentable meetings, things that don't take the yacht club, that don't take the beach club, that take this. With the new board coming on board, maybe we can work with Mr. Bailey and the members of the board that are there now to try to find a better way to use these underutilized places. Excuse the cough.
Thank you, Paula. For this next question, we're going to move back to the top of the batting order to Steve Tuttle. How would you propose to improve activities for young people in Ocean Pines?
Thank you. Actually, we have a lot for young people right now. Between our pools and our parks and our camps, our fishing experiences, junior golf, and junior lifeguard programs. In fact, I scanned through the activity guide just yesterday, and there are 29 unique programs for young people in Ocean Pines. But the question is, how would we get more or improve activities? I think one of the ways that you improve something is you ask the residents, the parents of the young people, what do they want and what do the young people want? I think we have to ask program directors what they are learning and hearing from the young people in terms of additional programs. And finally, I would encourage parents of young people to volunteer to help staff and run programs during the school year, such as indoor soccer or other sports that kids would be interested in. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Frank?
Actually, I thought this was a great question, and I'm not sure I really have a good answer for you, and let me tell you why. My social dealings here with the folks in Ocean Pines really range from somebody that newly moved into the park that's 55 years old to somebody that's 70 years old that's been here for a while. And we tend to all do the same activities. Maybe it's cards, maybe it's mahjong, maybe we get together to pool, whatever, because we have a multitude of activities here in the Pines. But I'll tell you what, the story changes big time when I'm dealing with my 10-year-old grandson versus a 20-year-old. That's a 10-year span versus a 15-year span. And that range, 10 to 20, you really have to target your market. You have to know exactly what age group you're going for, what they want to do, and how they want to do it. And the ways to do that are, I think, through our Parks and Recs department and through our amenity heads. They deal closely with the clients on a day-to-day basis. They're the ones that need to come up with the program concepts, promote those concepts to the general manager. The GM has to bring that with a budget to the board, and we have to see if it's financially doable and makes sense. And that's how I see that working for the 1,200 or so young people. But quite honestly, asking a 70-year-old what a 12-year-old should do just ain't going to work, folks.
Thank you, Frank. Greg?
And that's a great question, because when I first moved here, nobody cared. You're a young person, you did what you wanted to do. There was nothing open for you. They rolled the sidewalks up at 5 o'clock, and that was it. You know, well, you're getting off work, what do you do? Well, here in Ocean Pines, they started a young person's club over at the country club. And they advertised it in the newspaper once, and they got 4 or 5 people to come, and then they advertised it again in the newspaper. Bad thing about that is the newspaper was a monthly newspaper, so it didn't really get out. And the answer that the board provided was cancel it. Nobody's interested. So I think that mentality still kind of follows along here. I think there are a lot of things here that the young people can do, but you know, how about having the swim racket club open for late night swims, as well as the sports core? I don't particularly like the sports core. It's like swimming in a bubble. And in the wintertime, it's probably the greatest thing in the world. But you know, to go over and swim some laps in the swim racket club, you have a nice little kiddie pool there where your kids can go and play and splash in a little fountain or whatever it is. I think that's important. You know, that's something we ought to look at. It's a tough thing. It's like what you said. You know, we're older, and I know what it was like when I first came here. It was non-existent. You were not a person. As you got older, you started fitting into the other things. But as a young person, there's nothing here for you. And it has changed, but it hasn't changed enough. Nope.
Thank you, Greg. Paula?
Well, I took the term young people to be a little older. The people that are moving in now in their 20s and early 30s with children, on our block alone, we have 3 families that are in their mid to late 20s, and they have younger children. And these people have busy lives. Their lives are busy with their jobs, with school, with children and family, and their communication skills are very, very different on every level than we have now. They're not going to pick up a paper flyer. Most of them don't even know how to read a newspaper anymore. The Pines, when they're trying to recruit this, must keep that in mind. For that, I have 3 20-something grandchildren, and for activities in their world, the activities must be fun, accessible, and require, for the most part, little or no formal preparation for them to participate. For example, a good thing might be, for that age group, have cornhole tournaments at Whitehorse Park. They can bring the kids, and they can meet other people their age in their 20s. That's one of the things I hear from my next-door neighbor, that it's hard to meet other younger people here. Family-based activities should also have increased exposure involving Worcester County. For instance, they have a rec baseball program here that is wonderful, and it would allow the Ocean Pines younger parents to use this resource to meet up with other people their age. And finally, we have to watch recruiting or identifying anything as just young people, because then we get back into homeowners' rules and regulations. So maybe we should just invite them in, find a few, come meet my neighbor, ask them what they would attend, because the 20-year-olds will take care of the 8 or 10-year-olds, but nobody's taking care of the 20-year-olds, and they find it very lonely. It's something we need to look into.
Thank you, Paula. Ted?
As Steve mentioned, we have a 44-page summer guide that has preschool, kindergarten, youth sports, sports and specialty camps, a myriad of activities that are available for young people in Ocean Pines. We also have a similar guide in the winter. But the other thing that nobody's talked about here is that OPA had a net operating loss of nearly $425,000 last year in the Parks and Recs budget. So in my opinion, I do not think we need to increase the cost investment into Parks and Recs by adding a bunch of other programs. But I would expect that we need to address two specific questions this fall. Do we have the right mix of programs based on interest, cost, and age? What do we need to move around to attract the people that aren't being served? And second, as Paula said, are we publicizing and marketing those programs correctly to how younger people or younger families get their information and can be part of those programs?
Thank you, Ted. This next question will start with Frank. What do you think the Ocean Pines Board of Directors could do better or differently?
Thanks, Steve. Well, first and foremost, and I'll address this question or this answer to the people around me rather than to you, is to make an honest attempt to work together in a more business-like manner. As I said earlier, to criticize without punching and to accept criticism when it's valid without crying. To make an honest attempt to agree or disagree with the person based on the merits of the idea, not who submits the idea to the board. We also need to make an honest attempt to fulfill our oversight responsibility and to understand the difference between oversight and management, to provide clear, concise direction to the new GM on what is expected in terms of planning, budgeting, and reporting, and to make sure the board's direction is being implemented without telling the GM how to do it. And to be less secretive. When the phrase adjournment to closed sessions for contractual issues as permitted by the Maryland Homeowners Association Act, blah, blah, blah. How about telling the homeowners why you're going into closed session? Come on, folks. We're a homeowners association, not the National Intelligence Directorate. Okay? Also, to bring any committee or work group currently not in 100% compliance with the association bylaws and the Maryland HOA into 100% compliance. For those of you that don't exactly know what I mean, my motion, if I'm elected to the board, is going to bring the TWG in from the dark or disband it. Also, we have to be open to all alternatives in managing the association. Outsourcing, consultants, greater input from committees. That's the way we get better, not worse in the future.
Thank you, Frank. Greg?
I agree with Frank. The other thing is just openness. The boards in the past have always had their little secret meetings. They go off to somebody's house and have a meeting. They have a little closed session, where you don't know what they're doing and until it's too late. And it's just another one of the reasons why I'm running, because I don't believe in any of that crap. If you can't have a meeting in front of people, you shouldn't have the meeting. It's just that simple. And I think that it's just openness and make the people, and you guys are paying the bills out here just like I am, and you should demand more, demand better, and you should get it. And I think, I'm listening to these guys up here, we all pretty much sound like we're on the same page. So, it's going to be a tough decision for y'all to vote for, but it's just, things just have to change. And I think, this group here, or one or two of us even, would be the ideal thing to get started. And it's a start. And change has got to come because things just can't run the way they're running. We've got a good start now. We got a good clubs or good food. We got need to work on some service issues downstairs. But other than that, things are good. So I think that we can do better, and I know we can do better, and I know you put the right people in there with the right skills and the right things. we can do it. And like I say, I'm looking at, 4 other people here that can do a good job, and maybe in the 5th. And I think, give us a shot. Give one of us a shot. Give all of us a shot if we can.
Thank you, Greg. Paula?
I guess it's a general consensus across this board here that we need more openness. We need any openness would be nice. The Robert's Rules of Order is about that thick, and you can reach into Robert's Rules of Order and pull out any documentable way to do something. We go to board meetings, we can't ask questions. There's a comment section. You can stand and comment all you want, never hear anything back about it. Now, occasionally, when someone comments, they'll answer that comment, and you have to wonder, must have liked them better than me. I'm really concerned about some of the things that are going on behind closed doors. The Maryland State Homeowners Association does have rules and regulations about what you can have a confidential meeting for. It's spelled out, and I even called to make sure I didn't miss anything, because I was told, before you say anything, make sure you know. Well, she told me, and now I know. And it's not being done. We need to get everything out in the open. Why? Because, like we're all saying here, we are the Pines. I said that last summer one time. They threatened to clear the room because everybody clapped. We can't have that kind of performance. We are here. We pay the bills. We need to know. We don't need to know the 2 things about they can do, personnel and extreme effects on budget and committee. The rest of that, why can't we ask a question? Why isn't there a formula or a format where you can submit something and get an answer? I sent 6 emails over 7.5 months. Haven't heard a word. Gets a little disconcerting. It was a simple question. Now, if you would really like to see the change, you have to decide who up here you want to put in this board to do it. Make sure you go to the July meeting and listen to a process that's being formulated where they can remove any of us from the board without you knowing about it. Go to that meeting.
Thank you, Paula. Ted?
I would say we need to do a better job communicating, and let me give you the areas. One, I think, and I take Paula's thing at heart there, that we should return to doing a work session, if not at every board meeting, at every other one, which is a session where you can have the give and take with residents who show up and be able to explain in a little more detail what's going on. Second, I think our financial reporting, we started a narrative and footnoting process on the monthly financials, with the first version being the May financials that are now posted on the website. That will continue to be built out over the next 3 months to address anomalies, concerns, positives, and other information to better explain what's behind the numbers you see on the report. And I think we've moved to adding discussion topics and better listing the content and the context in which they're being presented at the board. As to closed meetings, if it applies to personnel, it needs to stay private for obvious reasons. As to other things like negotiating contracts, I think that the board should announce which contract we're looking at, whether it be a MediaCom or the Matt Ort contract and that kind of thing. But I would say this, anybody that negotiates contracts out in public is nuts, because you've given your positions to the person you're negotiating with. So there are legitimate reasons. I do believe on contracts and things like that, it should be stated which ones we're looking at.
Thank you, Ted. Steve?
Thank you. I think a number of comments that have been made already, but certainly financial management and proper reporting is absolutely critical. Secondly, I agree with what the rest of the people have said here about communication. It's sorely lacking. I think one of the reasons that people get confused and frustrated in the Pines is because they don't know what's going on. It's not that hard to communicate, but we have to do it. I agree with Ted. We should have more work sessions and opportunities to draw upon the expertise in the community. I was at one of the special meetings recently with the, dealing with the Golf Country Club. And during the course of the meeting, the people who are really involved in golf came and shared some of their concerns. And the President, Doug Parks, waived Robert Rules of Order, and they had a good dialogue between those people from the golf community and with the board, which was really, really helpful in coming to some good conclusions and decisions about how to proceed with that project. I think that Robert's Rules of Order handicap the board functioning. I get very frustrated when I go to a board meeting and you're allowed to make public comments and then there's no feedback, there's no comment, there's no response from the board. I do believe that the board president has the ability and the freedom to waive the Robert's Rules of Orders on occasion and have interaction with community people around some of the issues. It requires us to be responsible in our communication, but I believe we're big enough to do that. I would really encourage fewer closed meetings, and I want us always to adhere to the Maryland law, to our DRs, our bylaws, and our resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. This next question will start with Greg. Considering the increased traffic on Northgate Bridge intensified by the Medical Professional Center, what do you see as a solution?
That's a very good question. To be honest with you, the traffic kind of runs fairly smooth there. Surprisingly, considering how many accidents we've had in the past, I can't tell you how many cars I've cut up there on the Northgate Bridge because of people just not paying attention to the traffic light. So I think everybody's kind of paying attention to the traffic light more because they have to. And I think the Northgate Bridge has always been a kind of a bottleneck thing, but it's nice. It's kind of an institution here in the Pines, going over the bridge. You tell somebody, oh, yeah, okay, well, you go over the bridge and come into the Pines, go over the pond. You can't dualize it. They rebuilt it a couple of years ago, and they rebuilt it again and again and again. And it's just what it is. You're not meant to go fast through here. You just need to slow it down and abide by the speed limit. And I think that if they enforced the speed limit, state troopers, county sheriffs out on 589, you wouldn't have any problems. Again, being with the fire department and having cut up cars out there and pulled people out of ditches, and we actually pulled a guy out of a tree because he was going too fast and he missed his turn. He ended up going over a guardrail into unbeknownst to us, it was almost a 60-foot ditch, and a lot of people don't realize it's there on the side of Route 90, the turnoffs coming down to 589. I think if the speed limit was enforced, I think everything would flow nicely, and it does work. That's not a good answer, I know, but it's the only one I got.
Thank you, Greg. Paula?
Well, the entrance to the North Pines and the bridge there is sort of a monument to the Pines. Why have a wider bridge? When you get inside, you're down to one lane. I mean, people need to slow down, and the police have been a very visible presence there lately. They got me coming in one night at 9:30 just to remind me that he didn't think I had my seatbelt high enough. It was there. To change things around and to try to enforce, because of the medical calls, the medical center. It's not the medical center, it's the way people drive now. And, if you've ever gotten up on 90, and all of a sudden you're watching a man come at you when you're stopping and you think, where does he think he's going? You know what I speak, and it's everywhere. So to try to attribute it strictly to the medical center and the traffic in and out of there is probably pointing at the wrong finger. What can we do about this? This is difficult. This is a county, state, United States problem. Crazy drivers are crazy drivers. And I don't think that we should bring it back to the Pines to find a solution for it. We have enough to do right now.
Thank you, Paula. Ted?
Several years ago, for those who don't know the history of this, the developer there, before they built the first building, came to Ocean Pines and wanted to cut a road in that hit Ocean Parkway so that the traffic could come around and exit out our same way or travel all the way through the Pines. And the board rightly rejected any additional dumping onto Ocean Parkway. I don't think there is much of anything we can do about that traffic out there. What has been done by the state in adding the turn lanes in there is about the best we're going to get until they decide to widen the road at some point in the future. So in my opinion, the board took the correct decision several years ago by not having an additional dumping road into Ocean Pines, and we just deal with it going out through that end of the neighborhood.
Thank you, Ted. Steve?
Thank you. I agree with what Ted said. I was going to bring up what happened with the developer, but he covered that, so I don't need to. I think one of the first things we need to know is what is the Department of Transportation's plans for 589. If they have any plans to widen it any time in the near future, the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it might be, we need to know what those are before we start making decisions about spending association money to do something at the exit itself from Ocean Parkway at the North Gate. I know the bridge is an icon in Ocean Pines. At some point, we may have to face that bridge has to go, it has to be widened, and we have to make a better exit out of Ocean Pines. For now, I think we need the situation the way it is and not try to spend any more money to make major changes to our exit. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Frank?
Yeah, I would agree with the civil engineer that's sitting next to me. 589 is a state route, and we're not going to do anything to change what the state wants to do with one of its roads. So 589 is 589. Now, when you get to the north entrance, that's a little different story. That's Ocean Pines. I think over the years since that bridge has been built, traffic has changed. We can certainly, at some point in time, take a look at, is that the appropriate bridge structure, and is that the appropriate entryway structure that we need, and to kind of plan what we're going to do in consideration with what the state and county will tell us in terms of what they plan to do. Now, the question is, and as some of you know, a couple years ago, we had some major issues with bridges. They were under the minimum guidelines by the county and state. The question is, nobody said anything about bridges for 2 years. Where does the current condition of the North Bridge reside in the state hierarchy of quality? We may be forced to address that sooner than later, and if we do, the only thing we can do is address the traffic that we know comes into Ocean Pines on Ocean Pines property. And I respect architecture, and I respect the fact that it's an iconic bridge, but sometimes when you have a one-lane road going out of a community that has 12,000 people, you might have to open your thinking a little bit to maybe having a 2-lane or 3-lane bridge going out. Just a suggestion, not an ironclad idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. This next question is the last question of the evening before we move into closing statements. And it's going to start with Paula. What are your greatest strengths, and how can they be used on the board?
Sorry. My greatest strength is my grandmother's common sense. It's nice to have had a lot of education, which I've been privileged to do. It's nice to belong to highly intelligent organizations, which I do. But my greatest strength is common sense. If it looks like a duck, and it talks like a duck, and it walks like a duck, it's a duck. Okay. It really is necessary when you're dealing with 8,500 properties. It's really necessary at any state in life. And I think that if I am chosen to be on the board, that common sense will encourage me to work with the other board members, and we all sound a lot alike up here, that to be able to improve everything necessary to bring everyone into a better place in the Pines. Sometimes it might be not the answer you want. It might just be what you have to hear. It might not be your answer. It might only be the better answer. But having common sense helps me find that. The education helps me write it up, and my husband and all his support gives me the heart to go out and say it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Ted?
I think my strengths include not being beholden to any amenity or constituency in the Pines. I'm not a golfer, racket, aquatic, any of those things. So the decisions I make are based on the best interest of the association. I have a desire to delegate and empower board advisory committees to encourage involvement and buy-in. And I believe that both of the committees I'm a liaison to, the ARC group under Lisa Schwartz and the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee under Marty Clark, would attest to that. I have an ability to seek and secure support, and just as important, to support my colleagues and where they're moving forward. I have a demonstrated willingness to address issues that others just talk about, and I have a sense of conciliation and fairness. In other words, you're not always going to get your way. You've got to find a way to get consensus to move forward. And finally, we have a diverse board with different talents and experiences. And we will need that diversity, and it will continue no matter which 4 people you elect. I think I work well with different opinions and different ideas to find solutions.
Thank you, Ted. Steve?
Thank you. Well, Paula took my thunder because I think common sense is one of the things that I do bring to the board if I'm elected. I've discovered over the years that common sense is not all that common. I believe I can make the commitment of time and bring my experience to the board, and I'm willing to do that. I'm fully retired and ready to serve in that capacity. My engineering background and my nonprofit management experience, I believe, will be a real asset on the board. I'm a listener, a problem solver. I'm persevering in situations. I'm a quick learner. I love to ask hard questions. People that I've supervised have often said, "You ask too many hard questions." But I think that's important. I do believe in building consensus, and I think it's important for board members to know what you know and know what you don't know and know when to seek expertise. The board is made up of 7 people who bring various experiences and expertise, but we don't know everything. No one on the board knows everything. You need to be willing to work with other people and draw in that expertise when the opportunity is there. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Frank?
Yeah, you know, earlier when I gave my background and I said I made this kind of journey from a mechanical engineer co-op trainee to vice president and general manager, I did leave out that at one point I was a journeyman iron worker. So I do know how to implement plans with my hands and through hard work. But I would say this, one of those things I learned on that journey about me and how I approach things are my greatest strengths are my ability to use my education and experience to work with people in a collaborative manner to make common sense solutions available to an organization and to communicate the hows and whys of that to all the stakeholders in that organization. And that's the reason I'm running for the board. Like I say, guys, look, I don't care how you cut it, for the last 2 years, we've been shortchanged. It's not about blame, it's about performance. It simply has not been there. And we need to elect 4 people that are going to go on the board this year and get performance back to where it should be. It is not rocket science. It's blocking and tackling issues, doing things right, knowing things and putting things in place, like knowing the grass in Maryland starts growing in March, not in May. Okay? Like knowing if ditches are filled, they don't drain right. Okay? That's what we need to do. Yeah. If you want to, I can go talk with the McKinseys and companies if we want to select them. But I'll tell you what, I think I'd be equally appropriate talking with the board about why you need to clean a ditch so it drains water properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Greg?
Greatest strengths and weaknesses. Being in construction and being in the management of people is basically what we're doing, is what the board of directors is here to do. Everything we do is either construction-oriented or people-oriented, and so that's kind of what we're here. And again, the ability to run jobs and make things work and make things move. And I think that's one of the strengths that I do have. And I think it could be used on the board to get things. I despise some of the things that happened, not just over the last 2 years, over years and years and years and years and years that I've lived here. And it just came to a time that, it's our money, and that's kind of what it comes down to. I'm Irish German. I'm a tightwad. I don't like our money being spent and thrown around like it does. Like it doesn't matter. I don't want a plaque on a building for me. I want a building that's going to stay there long after I'm gone. It doesn't make any difference who did it. Don't care. I want to know what it cost and why isn't it going to last a long time? Why is it going to be rebuilt twice or 3 times or 4 times? Why is it being remodeled? Why does it have mold issues? Whose fault is that? Who paid for it? That's what I want to know. And that's about it. I think that I can do a good job. I think I will do a good job. I think I'll work well with these guys. I'm used to working with engineers and making their, like I said, making their things come true. And I think some of their things that they want to come true are mine too. So there you go. Let's everybody go out and vote and have a good time. Go downstairs, have something to eat too. It's good. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. We'll now, each candidate will have a 3-minute opportunity to provide a closing statement, and as I indicated at the beginning, these are going to be given in reverse ballot order, so starting with Ted.
I'm very happy to run and stand on my action and our board's accomplishments over the last 9 months. Often in the OPA news cycle that runs for 5 days, we lose sight of accomplishments and progress. Since September, we have brought back stability to the operation with a new general manager and a new director of finance, returning to a system where the board makes policy and the GM implements policy, effectively ending some of the unilateral decision-making process and restoring some checks and balances. We have worked in tandem with the Budget and Finance Committee to develop a realistic budget, listening and adjusting with attainable amenity revenue goals. We actually implemented, instead of just talking about, the first step in a 2-step process to address employee benefits in a fair, rational manner that will get benefits and wages into alignment in the marketplace. We're the first board to do so. We're the first board to actually ensure that an HR, human resources person was hired in Ocean Pines. It's been talked about and in budgets for years. It's actually now occurred. We've been able to enter into a contract to outsource the Yacht Club and Beach Club to an experienced third party, the Matt Ort Company, with an incentivized contract that protects Ocean Pines Association. We approved a forensic audit to clear up accusations of impropriety and identify any fraud, theft, and management practices that need correcting while simultaneously addressing the deep dive audit. We are poised to prepare a true capital improvement plan through the use of the soon-to-be-completed reserve study. My intent is to continue to make decisions that are in the best interest of protecting homeowners' values and to do what is right in moving the association forward. I'm not going to promise assessment reductions or anything I can't deliver. What I am going to promise is that I'm going to try to make each decision based on what is best for Ocean Pines. That is what the duty of a board member is. The primary responsibility I have is to maintain and protect the value of our homes and our facilities. I believe in the last 9 months, whether you agree with every decision or not, my service on the board has contributed to the righting of the ship, to actual actions and progress, and you see a different, forward-thinking, collaborative operation compared to where we were a year ago. I hope and trust that I have earned your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Paula?
I think it's been an interesting night. I think you've heard a lot said here. I hope that you've listened to what I've had to say. I would appreciate you realizing that when I talk about being a railroader, it's not 10 little boxcars by the side of the road. These were $1 million operations, day and night, for 32 years, with every kind of award. I would bring a view to the board in that I, again, and also am not beholden to anyone. I've attended most of the budget meetings as an observer, a whole lot of other meetings as an observer, and have spent hours talking to people in the Pines, people everywhere, in grocery stores, Food Lion, library, women's clubs, political clubs, and just on the street. I've left my husband stranded a few times while I was busy talking, trying to find out what's important to you all, and that's what I would bring to the board. An ability to listen, ability to work well with the people on the board, and an ability to keep us steady and steadfast in a direction where we all want to go. No promises. You can't get everything in life, but the ability to listen and to make sure that you are heard would be one of my mainstays. I do hope you've listened to what I had to say and realized that I have been excessively nervous up here. I used to run multi-million-dollar railroad yards, and you people scare the daylights out of me. Thank you again, and I hope you will give me consideration when running for the board.
Thank you, Paula. Greg?
I know I'm a little rough around the collars. I'm not maybe as well educated as some of the people sitting up here. That's just the way things worked out. I am able to do things. I love this community. I've been here for a long time. I think that, we've heard a lot of things about budgets and finances and stuff like that, and things that are necessary to a homeowners association and also to our community. Again, it's tough to sit up here and try and think of some of these things that are going to be beneficial for you, and try and get my point across as eloquently as I possibly can. I've tried. I'm just not that good at it. And I think with that attitude, I think that that's what it's what our community needs right now. It needs somebody to come in here and, maybe not flush the toilet after every time you go to the bathroom. It's somebody that's going to do something different. It's going to rock the boat. And I'll be honest with you, I plan on doing that so that things get done properly. I'm not a conformist. I don't want things to be the way they were, and I think that's the biggest problem with this board and any board, is there's always somebody there, well, that's not the way we did it last time. Well, I don't want to hear that, because I'm just going to laugh at you and tell you to go sit down someplace. And I'm here to do this, do a job, work with whoever I have to work with, spend our money wisely, try and get things back to normal, what perceived as normal, and and live in a community that I like, and be around people that I like. And I think that's pretty much about it. I know this isn't much of a closing statement, but I think that it's appropriate, and I'd appreciate it if everyone would vote for me and a couple of my other colleagues up here, give us a shot. Give me a shot. I think you'll be surprised at what I can do for you and the community. And that's about it. I wish you all a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Frank?
Thanks, Steve. Well, today you've heard a lot about the issues of Ocean Pines, and I would just like to leave you with one thought. If you agree that Ocean Pines is a good place to live, but it could be better managed, then elect 4 of us that will give you a better board. Because better management really starts with a better board. A board that will listen to you, and a board that will communicate with you. A board that works together and works with the general manager to improve our business processes to make sure you are getting real value for your assessment dollars. A board that works with the GM to safeguard association assets against theft and corruption, and will do whatever it takes to assure you that poor business practices are eliminated and replaced with best business practices. A board that will continue to work with the GM to improve the quality and financial performance of our amenities. And a board committed to realistic budgets for operations, maintenance, capital, and reserves. And I want to just digress a second to talk about the people in the community. The thing that we lack is a strategic vision and a strategic plan. And when I talk with people, this is what they tell me. We don't mind paying the association assessment that will do the things that we have to do to maintain the association in good order. But what we don't want to do is continue a practice of paying an assessment when the programs are unplanned, unapproved, and unknown for the future. Tell us what the heck we're paying for, and then we're willing to pay it. We need a board that'll do that. Look, at the end of the day, make your choice, but I feel I have the background and experience to be a member of that better board. And I have a very basic commitment to you. My commitment is to listen to you, communicate with you, and to work with my fellow board members and GM to keep Ocean Pines affordable, to spend money wisely, and to do the things necessary to make our community the best it can be. But to make this happen, I need your vote. Thank you for your consideration, and if you have any questions, my cards are up here. Email me or call me. I will more than gladly entertain them. Have a great evening, guys.
Thank you, Frank. Steve?
Thank you all for being here tonight, for those who are viewing live stream or will watch it on video later. And thank you to each of the candidates for your participation tonight. I sincerely hope that you are better informed on the candidate positions on a host of issues, and you will be able to cast your vote from an informed position. And I hope you will all vote, and that you will vote for me. I want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. It's probably not typical board thoughts, but here it goes. It's about time and questions. Chicago, the rock group, is one of my favorite musical groups. Their 1969 debut album included a song that asks a probing question: does anybody really know what time it is? My friends, it is time for some new leadership, some fresh ideas, and restoration of trust and confidence in your board. In Maine, where I grew up, if you asked a true Mainer if he or she knew what time it was, they would probably say, "Yeah." If you want to know what time it is, you need to ask, "Sir or Madam, could you tell me what time it is?" Then you would find out what time it was. Asking the right questions is of utmost importance in serving as a director on the board. And I pledge to invest the time necessary to serve the association to the best of my abilities. There are three things that I think are really, really critical. One is teamwork. Teamwork is essential for the board to be able to accomplish what is best for you, the association. I have led teams, served on teams, and helped those teams accomplish their goals. The board is no place for personal egos or personal agendas. Transparency has been demonstrated by my leading the two-year effort to allow members to observe the ballot counting process and to know the results immediately upon completion of the count. This was accomplished by perseverance and determination, even with significant board opposition. The board must serve in a transparent manner. If elected, I will be one vote out of 7, but I will always champion the cause of transparent action by the board. And thirdly, accountability for my voice and my vote. There has been a lot written and discussed over the past year about theft and fraud and mismanagement. We need to expose the truth and hold those responsible accountable. Members may not agree with the position I take if elected to the board, but you have the right to know where I stand and the reasons why I stand there. I will respond to your emails and phone calls. I will study, discern, and search together with board colleagues for solutions that best serve us all as members of the Ocean Pines Homeowners Association. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we thank the candidates for their time and presentations. Hopefully, Ocean Pines residents are becoming well-informed so that we can live up to Thomas Jefferson's bold statement. The Elections Committee would like to thank the people who helped make this possible. First, the Matt Ort Group, and especially Annalise Ridgway for preparing this space, Denise Sawyer for photographing the forum, and Pat Cashman, hiding behind around the counter, for providing the audiovisual services necessary for streaming this event live on Channel 78 and recording for later viewing on the OPA YouTube channel. This concludes our forum. We are adjourned.